Hey there, welcome to DIY Comics FAQ. I'm GE Gallas and I'm here to answer all of your questions about indie comics, graphic novels, webcomics, zines, self-publishing, storytelling, you name it. If you like my videos, don't forget to subscribe. Today I'm answering another question from Zai at RY Comics on Twitter. They ask, taxes and webcomics? I have to admit this is kind of a scary topic. I'm not very good with numbers and math, which shouldn't surprise most of you since I'm much better at art and creative things. Huge disclaimer, I am not a tax expert. Please consult an accountant, federal or state tax authorities. Of course, taxes vary from state to state in the US, and if you're outside of the US, that's a completely different ballgame. So I live in Maryland in the USA, so what I have to say in this video about taxes may or may not apply to you. First of all, if you don't make any money off of your webcomics, then don't worry about taxes. If you start to make a profit from your comics via Webtoons, Tapas, Patreon, Ko-Fi, an online store like Etsy, a crowdfunding campaign like Kickstarter, by selling your comic books at conventions, you might want to look into taxes for your comics. I think a lot of people who sell their comics at conventions don't realize or just conveniently forget about sales tax. If you're selling something like comics at a convention, you probably want to consider collecting sales tax. It might be easiest to build the sales tax into the price of your comic book. So if you're selling something for $10, you might just want to take out the sales tax at 6% in Maryland instead of adding 6% on top of the $10. That way people buying comics at conventions don't have to worry about change. They can just give you a $10 bill and not have to juggle anything. Just make it as easy as possible for your customers. On a similar note, you might need to get a temporary permit to sell comics at a convention. I know that Small Press Expo, SPX, in my area, if I understand correctly, they have the government send each vendor, each comic book person, a form. You write down how much sales tax you collected and you pay for it to the state of Maryland. So if you're selling your comics at a convention, you definitely want to keep track of what you're selling. So I always keep a really simple list of whatever I sell so that I can keep track. I'm sure most of you who do conventions already do that, but it's great to have that record not only for your own reference, but also so you know how much sales tax you need to pay. You might also want to look into a 1099, and that's for self-employment earnings. A lot of people who do comics, it's basically freelance work, so definitely look into that. Just Google 1099 and see what comes up, and of course consult an expert. If you happen to make a profit on your comics or your webcomics, you can deduct business expenses, so definitely keep a record of those business expenses. If you're wondering what a business expense is, there are a lot of different things that you can include in that list. Any computer or tablet you might have bought to help you with your comics. So like an iPad and an Apple Pencil, I know those are very expensive, so you can put that on your business expenses. Any art supplies, Research like books and exhibits, I tend to do a lot of research for my comics, so I do end up spending money on books because some of the books are kind of obscure, so I can't just get them out of the library, and I don't like ebooks personally. I much rather have a paper book, so I have a lot of books that I put on my research for my business expenses. So exhibits, for instance, last October I went to London to see the William Blake exhibit at the Tate, and I went to a bunch of different museums to do research, and I went to Oxford and went to their museums to do research. So definitely you can take that as a business expense. You can also take travel as a business expense, whether it's a big trip like my trip to London and Oxford, or if it's driving to see a client that you're doing freelance work for, if you're meeting with a client to discuss a specific work, even if they're just a couple miles away. So be sure to keep a list of your business expenses and a list of, if you're driving in a car or you're taking public transit, you can take a list of the miles that you traveled for your taxes. So these are just a couple of good ideas to look into to kind of point you in the correct direction if you need to file taxes for your webcomics. I would say that most people don't need to file taxes for your webcomics because I don't think that many people make any money on their webcomics. If you're making $0 through your webcomics, then do not worry about taxes. But again, disclaimer, I am not a tax expert. Please consult an accountant. Go to your federal and state websites to find out more information about taxes. Please talk to someone who knows better than I do. I ask my parents a lot of advice for my taxes. My mom helps me out, which is wonderful. I'm lucky enough to have her help me with my taxes. So please, please, please talk to someone about your taxes because taxes are never easy. Well, I hope you found this episode useful. I know it's kind of short because I'm not very good with math and numbers and taxes, but just please make sure that you keep a record of all your sales wherever you go, whether it's online or in person, of your comics. That's a good record for yourself as well as a good record for filing your taxes. Do you have a question for me that you want me to answer in a future episode? A question about making your own comics, making your own web comics, writing, storytelling, drawing, whatever you have a question about, please ask me. You can ask me your question below, or you can tweet me at GEGallas, that's GEGALLAS. I look forward to receiving those questions and can't wait to answer them in a future episode of DIY Comics FAQ. Want to support this channel? Do you like the videos that I'm posting? Please, please subscribe below. It's one easy click. It's free. You'll be supporting this channel and you'll get notified every time I post a new video, which is Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's all for now. See you next time.